Thank you for joining us for Mental Health Performance, a series about how being healthy is more than just physical health. We have with us Graham Radcliffe, who is a school counselor and mental health performance coach working with teams and individuals at all levels, including professional players. We also have Lesley Gabel, the project director of the Safe Communities Coalition, who would like to tell you more about the Safe Communities Coalition Athletes Toolkit.
Hi, my name is Lesley Gabel of the Safe Communities Coalition of Hunterdon and Somerset County in the state of New Jersey. Today, I'd like to introduce you to the Athletes Opioid Prevention Toolkit. This toolkit was created in hopes to educate parents, coaches, teachers, athletes, and the entire community on the high-risk dangers of misusing a prescription pain pill. In addition, this toolkit provides suggestions and alternatives for using a prescription pain pill, such as physical therapy, over-the-counter medications such as Tylenol, Motrin, as well as ice, heat, massage, acupuncture. You'll find a whole list of all these different resources in this toolkit. In addition, in this toolkit, you'll also find some of the Safe Communities Coalition's documentaries that can help educate young athletes on the high risk of misusing a prescription pain pill. Please take the time to visit the Safe Communities Coalition website that is appearing on your screen right now to locate the Opioid Prevention Toolkit for athletes. It includes some of the latest researches from our Attorney General, including the documentary hosted by different athletes from the state of New Jersey on the dangers of opioids. Additionally, you'll find the Safe Communities Coalition's most recent release, The Fentanyl Factor. Fentanyl is a highly dangerous opioid that unfortunately is causing the deaths of many people, not just in New Jersey, but across the country. Thank you so very much. I'm back with Graham Radcliffe with our series on alternatives to managing stress and anxiety and setting goals rather than utilizing opioids, pain medications, alcohol, or other types of substances to manage our stress and anxiety. How can we really start going and moving ourselves forward, especially with the pandemic, where we've heard lots of people have a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of angst, and being able to set goals. And we were talking, and that's what we talked about in our last series. So today we're going to talk a lot more around visualization. And Graham, can you first of all, again, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Um,
Pam.
could you tell us a little bit about the difference between, we hear a lot of people talk about mindfulness and visualization. What's the difference between the two?
So just before I kind of comment on that, I think it's important, and a lot of people may hear it, but the mind is an incredibly powerful tool to be utilized and used against your behaviors or changing your behaviors or changing your habits to be more positive and so forth in your actions. Real quick example of the power of the mind, and then I'll get into the visualization.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of research in using visualizations to create change in athletes. So two real big ones. One was a basketball one. So they took a basketball team, and you can Google this. This is on the internet. They took a basketball team. They split the basketball team into three groups. One of the groups were shooting foul shots every day. The other group did nothing. And the third group was taken into the locker room and was led through a visualization process of shooting a basketball with perfect form and going through the routine of scoring a foul shot without anything other than using their mind.
Mm-hmm.
After a period of time, they bring out the three groups and they test them. And most people would think, well, the people who've been shooting, they're going to do the best. But I think since I brought this up, that's not the case. The team that actually visualized outperformed the other two groups, which is fascinating if you think about it, because all they did was visualize. And science and doctors and psychologists, what they've discovered is that through visualization, your mind doesn't know if it's real or not. So if you visualize something positively, or you visualize an action over and over again, and you learn the process of visualization, your mind actually believes that it's really, truly happening. So then when you actually go to do it, the muscle memory that you gain through visualization has worked. Another quick example is strength. There was a doctor in Cleveland that wanted to study the strength of the hand and could, using visualization, increase strength, right? So we had one group, those like little squeeze things that you're trying to strengthen your grip.
Mhm.
So one of the groups did that as an exercise. The other group did nothing. And the third group went through a series of visualizations with the doctor on visually squeezing their hand and feeling like they were getting stronger and working out basically. Interestingly enough, I think you probably know how this is going to go, right? The group that visualized had the greatest rate of improvement in strength in their hand than the other two groups. So they've proven how powerful the mind is through using visualization, that you can create physical change within your body. And it also can create emotional change because, like I said, you don't know the difference between real and what's not. And if you can convince yourself through visualization that it's real, or things are positive, or things can be positive, your body or your mind will start believing that those things actually happened. So it's a great tool for growth in any direction, whether it's athletics, whether it's personal, whether it's rehabilitation. I don't think it applies to all those areas. So it's a very, very powerful tool to use.
Well, I think that, Graham, you've just touched on something that I think I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing right now. Like you said, not just athletes, but with the pandemic and the amount of time people have been on Zoom, or the amount of time people have been isolated in homes, and but just all the different situations, it's been tough for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I hear a lot about how tough things are for everyone, which they certainly are, and we certainly know that. But it's great to hear that we can use the power of our mind to try to make some changes with that, especially coming into the springtime. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. A lot of people are looking forward to, as we see a lot more vaccines rolling out. We know the work we do in prevention, that often people turn to substances, whether it be alcohol or medications, whether it's tobacco use, marijuana. People end up using substances because they think it makes them feel better, or they think, if I use this, it's going to dull my pain and I'll be able to do better. And I think what I hear you saying is that there's a lot of other more natural, healthier ways, even through the mind, to be able to do that. Maybe you could you've given us some examples. Maybe you could take us through maybe one.
Yeah, I'll give you one more other example, then I'll give you like a real simple
Okay,
visualization to
great.
try. Amy Cuddy, who's a psychologist at Harvard. I'm not sure if she still teaches there, but she's in the business school. She's a social psychologist. And she studied the power of the mind because she believed, when she was younger, going through different educational processes and trying to get a PhD, every time she'd be presented with a stressful situation, she'd fumble and bumble. And then she would have like a lot of self-doubt, and then she'd beat herself up, and she wouldn't be feeling very positive.
Mhm.
And sometimes, would just not get out of that funk that probably a lot of people can relate to, getting in a funk like that, where you're just like, why did I act like that? Why didn't I be myself? Why didn't I do
Sure.
this? Why did I, and you start beating yourself up a little bit, and all the what ifs kind of come out.
Mhm.
She studied it, and fascinating what she found is that your mind, and you yourself as a posture, you can change your physiological makeup of your body in terms of your hormones, which then affect how you feel. So very, very simple, right? She did tons of studies, but I'll simplify it for the purpose of this. If you learn how to practice power postures, right? So think of Wonder Woman, right? That's a very, hands on the hip,
Mhm.
shoulders up. That's a very powerful
Make me
posture,
sit up straight now.
right? Sit up straight, right? When you get yourself into a very power posture or a powerful posture, you'll even see presidents, if you go through photos, because they've been taught this, that if they get into a powerful pose, not only do they change their body chemistry to feel more confident and believe in themselves, other people around them react thinking that they're very confident and they know what they're talking about. So it's a psychological like kind of trick in a way, but it works. So the study basically found that if you get into power postures for a certain period of time, like 5 minutes, not a long period of time, 5 to 10 minutes, that you can raise your testosterone level and lower your cortisol level just by taking a power posture. And what that does is, it doesn't matter male or female, but if you have that relationship of those chemicals in your body, you're going to feel more confident, you're going to feel stronger. So practicing posture And working on your posture can lead to more confidence physiologically, not just emotionally. So that's another amazing example of the power of the mind and what can do. And her name is Amy Cuddy. She's been on TED Talks. You can Google her. You'll probably get a lot more of a definitive example. But I think in terms of visualization, the easier you start with, the shorter ones you start with, the better you're going to do long term. Because what happens is people try to do these big, long visualizations. And they also think of outcomes. And they think, like, let's say I'll take an athlete, for example, and I've worked with a couple, and I worked with a swimmer, and she says, I visualized me winning. It didn't work. I didn't win. I'm like, no, that's not what visualization is. It's not like I dream a genie and you make a wish and things happen. Visualization is about the process and improving your process and improving how you feel about it, so your action is more confident. That's really what visualization does. So the reason we start small is, if anyone's ever tried it, you don't have to have ADHD or any of those issues. It's so hard to quiet your mind and to visualize things for a period of time. And if anyone's tried it, they know what I'm talking about. Think of walking a puppy, right? If anyone's ever had a puppy, it's one of the most difficult things to walk a puppy, right? Just think of your friends, think of you. The puppy is all over the place, right? That's how your mind is when you first start to try and do visualizations. Your mind goes everywhere because it's new, it's exciting, you're trying it. Before you know it, you haven't visualized anything and you're like, this doesn't work, and you give up. So know that puppy, if you walk it and you keep practicing it, eventually that puppy becomes a dog that's easily walked. So visualization is the same thing. So start small. Here's a real easy one to start with. 1 to 2 minutes of relaxation. So you could just practice some deep breathing, some cleansing breaths, breathe in, hold it, let it out. Just kind of, and you don't want to be in a bed laying down. You want to be sitting in a chair. Might as well use your posture, right?
What about our posture? Yeah.
Right? Sit up straight. Just take some deep breaths. Put your hands on your knees or your lap. Close your eyes and just really focus on breathing. Focus on your posture and your body. And that's just like a 2-minute relaxation. Then you want to do from there is you want to do some confidence conditioning, right? It's called self-talk. You may have heard that term, and people are like, oh, it doesn't work. It does work. It's very, very powerful, right? So self-talk is telling yourself an affirmation about yourself, something positive, something you're good at, something you're going to do, something you can do. So some sort of powerful affirmation, right? I'm capable, I'm good. If you're an athlete, I got to Division I because I'm a good worker, I'm a good athlete, whatever it is, you want to use self-talk and positive affirmations. The trick here is do not use I. It's a recipe for it not working, right?
Why is that, Graham?
So when you do self-talk, you want to talk in a third person, like use your name or use me or they, or you don't want to use I. Because when you use I, you're talking to yourself, and studies have found that when you use I, inherently you start to go into more to a negative thought, right? Like, so let's just say you're going to take a test, right? And you say, I got this, and you can only use I words. I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Your mind starts to go to a negative direction when you use the word I. If you use, my name is Graham, Graham, you got this. Graham, you can do this. Graham, you've done this before. It's like someone outside of me coaching me to do it. That's a much more powerful self-affirmation or self-talk than using the word I. So if you try to use self-talk before, take I, throw it in the garbage, use your name, and use yourself in the third person, and watch how much you don't go down a negative path. Because a coach, someone else, isn't going to tell you something negative. So it's just, that's a mind hack or a mind trick. So if you use your name, so Lesley, you're like, Lesley, you can do this. Lesley, you've gotten through this. Lesley, you've done that. You're going to stay more positive. If you use the word I in the statements, you're eventually going to start drifting towards more negative. And they've researched this. It's not something I've just made up. It's definitely based on research. So self-affirmations for 2 or 3 minutes, right? Repeat them and just see yourself in maybe those positive situations. Then what you want to visualize next for a minute or two is situations you've been in where the outcome hasn't been exactly what you wanted. So when I've been dealing with athletes, it may be, they missed a trap or the ball went out of bounds and their head went down, they lost self-belief, and they weren't really happy with what happened next because maybe they got subbed and maybe they got yelled at, some situation, or they reacted, they got frustrated, they yelled at a referee. It doesn't really matter what the situation is. You visualize yourself in that scenario. You think of the outcome, knowing that it wasn't the outcome you wanted because it didn't lead to anything positive. Then you think out into the future when this happens again. Visualize out into the future. Don't go back and visualize what already happened. Visualize it happening again in the future. So you got to create a new memory or new visualization. When you create it, create the new outcome that you want. Create what you want, how you want to react, and how you want that outcome to go. And continually see that and continually hear the sounds and really try to strengthen that skill of visualization through all your senses. Then you take a few deep breaths and you just try to clear your head, and you go back to the beginning and you think about your hands on your hip, your thighs or your legs. Take a few deep breaths, and then you just open your eyes. That whole visualization shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Anyone, I don't care what your limitations are, you can learn to do that 10-minute visualization if you practice it.
So Graham, so 10 minutes for anyone who's never tried even like a visualization, that's a long time, especially for I don't know, maybe the older you are, it's even harder. I say that because I think, people have been conditioned to do things a certain way, like it's all effort, it's all, the more harder you work, it's kind of like, the definition of insanity, right? You just keep doing the same things over and over and expecting a different outcome. So I think this is along the same lines when we need to focus more on not just the physical aspects for athletes and how they manage themselves, but also anyone. Like we said, this could be, I think a lot of this advice, I'm thinking of many different things that we can.
Here's the easy way to help. And it's you're right. For a lot of us, it may be difficult, 10 minutes or 8 minutes. You can, instead of like trying to find ways it won't work, what I try to get people to do is to find ways that they can make it work. Same thing. That's the elite mindset or the growth mindset. So you can write down the scenario, right, that I just said in terms of relaxation. You can take your cell phone and you can put it in your voice recorder, right? Like you can talk it out in your voice recorder, not doing it, but just talk it out in your voice recorder. Then sit back, hit play on your voice recorder, close your eyes, and you'll be talking to yourself about how to go through the visualization. So if you don't have anyone to help you, like a mentor, someone else guiding you through it, you can use your own resources and try to develop a way to help yourself get through it. But I can't emphasize enough, if there was one gift I could give to anyone, anytime, is to learn the skill of visualization in terms of growing your mental strength and your positive belief. And then that's your action. And then your actions, like we said in the first segment, is going to be really causing your feelings and your beliefs. So it's not easy, but it's like any skill. If you work at it, you will get better at it. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, skills can always be developed, right? So if you struggle in math in school and you're like, oh, I'm not a good math student, I can't do math, that's an average kind of mindset. Instead of saying, you know what, it's difficult, but I'm going to work at it and I'm going to improve. So it's how you look at it, how you approach it. And that's a skill you can always get better at, meaning math or anything else. You might not be a mathematician, but you can certainly improve. The mind, anyone can do. Anyone can improve their mind. Anyone can improve their mindset. Anyone can improve the skills of using your mind. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're involved in or what you've done. It's a gift that we have as people, and we just don't use it enough to help ourselves.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in our first segment, is that too often we work, especially as athletes, we work on the conditions of our bodies, but we don't spend enough time on working from the neck up. And most athletes, are training and working hard on themselves, but they're not doing from and really for anyone from the check from the neck up that we say in our prevention is critical. I think some of the other things, Graham, that I find quite frustrating is as soon as you say the word mental, right, whether it's mental health, mental
Mhm.
performances, there's such a stigma around that there's something not right with you if you have something wrong with a mental a performance, right? And nobody wants to hear that it's mental, right? They want to hear that it's something else. And I'm just wondering, we have a lot of stigma in the work that we do around mental health because there is such a stigma there as opposed to, say, a physical ailment. Have you experienced that in some of the work that you've been dealing with athletes and mental performance?
I experience it every day, not just doing mindset work with athletes, but also in counseling in a school. The stigma of going down and you know uh, believing that you need someone else to support you or you need help in some way. So it's certainly something I've been around or seen a tremendous amount. In terms of athletics, specifically, a tremendous number of the Division I athletes that I've worked with, that is their mentality, that they should be mentally strong, and that if they need a resource, it means they're weak, and
Hmm.
they're going to be judged in a negative fashion by the staff, by their players. Um, so the way that I present it to the athletes, the coaches, is mindset. Instead of saying your mind or mentality or psychology or any other term, it's just mindset. I'm a mindset coach, right? And it's all about, and the easiest way to get through to them in terms of mindset is you teach them some little tricks, some mindset tricks, and they're like, wow, that's cool, that works. Or you show them a visual where they think they see something, but they can see something else, some sort of little fun way to introduce it. It starts to take away the stigma a little bit, and it definitely helps. In the other thing that helps in terms of me working with athletes is because I was a coach, because I coached for so long and I had a lot of success in different levels, and they see me as an athletic person. They're not necessarily seeing me as like a psychologist or clinical psychologist coming in to work with them and they need help. So that piece helps as well. But I just attack it from a growth mindset that there's nothing wrong with you. It's a skill just like juggling or throwing or pitching or shooting that you have to work on. And there's a young woman who reached out to me. I'm going to meet with her tomorrow, from a local university, Division I soccer player. She came from Denmark, right? 20 years old. She thought she was going to start. She kind of was, in that belief, hey, I'm being recruited. They give me a full scholarship. I'm going to start. This is great. Comes to the United States. She's not starting. And every day in practice, she's declining in terms of her skills, her mistakes, her mental approach to herself, like beating herself up and banging the ground and getting frustrated. And she's not doing, great mentally, but she's an incredible talent. So she reached out and asked me, could I help her? Which is very, very rare that someone ever gets there. I think what you said earlier is most of the athletes like her, usually they'll go get the strength and conditioning coach and they'll say, yeah, I got to get stronger. I got to get quicker.
Hmm.
I got to be able to jump higher. I got to get tougher. Or they'll go to the dietitian and they'll be like, all right, I got to take in more protein. I got to do this. I got to do that. And they think nutrition is the way out. And very rarely will one of the higher level athletes admit that it's more of a mental block or hurdle that they need to get over to be successful. I
Yeah.
think it's great that this girl contacted me, so I can't wait to work with her because she's already halfway there, meaning she wants to improve.
I, and Graham, I think just that point alone, the stigma around mental health, mental performances, it's incredibly frustrating in the work that we do in prevention of substance use because so many people look at it as a moral failing if right that something has happened to them, that they need help. And I really like a lot of the things that we've discussed today because it's not a moral failing. It's
Mm-mm.
stuff that we can work on with our mindset. And I think the positive work that you're doing and working with the athletes, but even working with kids, and I think anyone listening to this can really be able to adapt some of the things that we've talked about today. So, and by the way, I really wish the player that reached out to you, because I think that that's probably shown tremendous growth even for herself personally, uh, is significant. Our hope with these series, the podcast series that we're launching, is that people will take some actions for themselves rather than turning to substances, rather than beating themselves up, emotionally, as well as from a mentality standpoint. I want to just, if you can summarize up, what's a good starting place, and do you have any type of social media you'd like to mention where people could reach out to you and be able to get some daily tips that you might be able to provide?
Sure. I don't know if you can see the sign or if it's backwards on the camera or not,
No,
but
we could see it.
um, I have an Instagram account, which is not there for being a social influencer or trying to like gain followers. It's nothing to do with that. The only people I ever invite to the page are athletes who I work with or teams I work with. And what it is just to give them reminders of things we talked about, because you can hear about things and you can slightly get motivated and you can be like, this sounds like something I could do, and then you forget how to do it. So the Instagram is really set up for that purpose, so that people can go back, they can remember, oh yes, I remember that. Oh yes, I remember that. And then there's a lot of like little stories about athletes and their successes and how they became successful. And also some mind hack tricks, which are my favorite. I love all the little mind hack tricks you can do.
I like the mind hack tricks. I'm going to be trying some of them myself, because I think, like I said,
they're
it can
great
be for anyone.
So in terms of like just summarizing, is that anyone who's listening, no matter where you're at, no matter what has happened, that's in the past. And you always got to keep your head where your feet are. And your feet aren't in yesterday, your feet aren't in tomorrow, your feet are right underneath you, which is today. And if you can continue to remind yourself, right, that the only thing that matters is today, where my feet are, then you're halfway there, because now you're in the present. And if you can stay in the present, you can grow, and you can continue to grow each and every day. And the mind is such an incredible, powerful tool that you can use, that you can utilize. And it's not about being weak. It's about, no one ever taught us this stuff. It's kind of like going into a German class when you took Spanish and like you're supposed to pass a German final. No one ever taught you German. So rarely ever has an athlete, someone in school, probably even your substance abuse programs, rarely has anyone ever taught them how to utilize their mind to their benefit, to their power. And so you should never be embarrassed or feel weak or feel like some sort of failure on your part that you did something or chose or didn't feel well, or your feelings, basically ran your actions. That's the past. That's happened. Where you are now is where your feet are. You can change, you can improve. And it's using your mind and using some skills. And if you go to my page, it's on the Instagram, it's GHR_mental_performance. And like I said, there's a lot of tips there. There's a lot of things you can use. There's all the pillars I work with student athletes, from motivation to discipline to goal setting to culture. Probably a lot of useful things that not just for athletes, but for anyone.
Yeah, I really think, as I said, as a lot of the things we're focusing on today is alternatives for managing our pain or to improve stress and anxiety that we know a lot of our athletes are facing with the pandemic today. We'll also be able to connect people to resources on alternatives. And our following series will be on how we do rehabilitation with pain and management, and how we can use the mental performances and mental mindsets to help us manage that.
Can I leave you with a little story?
Oh, please do, Graham.
All right. So this is just a little story, one of my favorites. It's not mine. I heard it from someone else. So it's about this woodsman, right, who enters competitions to chop wood. You may not be from an area where there's people who chop wood for competition, but that does exist. So this guy is older. He's about 50, right? A lot of the other competitors call him Old Man Turley. And he's been winning up in Maine every single year, this wood chopping competition. And They can't believe it up there, the organizers, because it's for charity, and they're not really overly concerned that this guy keeps winning, but they can't believe that this guy who's 50 keeps winning. So they finally decide, let's blow our charity up. Let's try and get more of a national recognition. Let's make more money and make our charity even more powerful. So they go and get the great woodsmen from California, Washington State, Florida, Texas, you name it. They even bring one guy from Canada who they think is going to win the whole thing. And their goal was really to promote, their charity, but at the same time, they really wanted someone to beat Old Man Turley, right? Because this guy's been winning and they're getting tired of him winning. So sure enough, the competition begins, and there's these little huts that they're allowed to rest in. There's a toilet, some food and water, while they're chopping, because the competition is about 3.5 hours, 4 hours. It's a long competition. It's about endurance, not just chopping wood. So as the competition starts, Old Man Turley looks around, and there's some pretty big dudes, with some muscles that are like, oh, I've got some competition here. So about 15 minutes in, he goes into the tent. Some of the other competitors, they look around, they're like, oh my God, what's this guy doing? I guess he's got to go to the bathroom already. Must be he's old. So he comes back out, keeps chopping his wood, blah, blah, blah. No one else is taking a break. Their strategy is just keep chopping away, and they're gonna chop the most wood. Another 20 minutes, he goes back in. They're like, wow, that guy, he must be really not well. He's got to keep going in there. Maybe he's hungry. I don't know what's up with him. Comes back out. He repeats the same thing every 15, 20 minutes. Competition ends, and now it's time to count up the wood. So they're going to leave Old Man Turley to the end because they want him to kind of be like, oh, these guys won, you didn't. So they look and they start counting, and the guy from Canada ends up with appears to be the most wood. So they're thinking like, oh, here we go. This Canadian, woodsman really, really showed up everyone in the US, and especially Old Man Turley. They get to Old Man Turley's pile, they count his wood, and unbelievably so, Old Man Turley's pile had the most wood. And they're all shaking their head and like, how could this be? The guy from Canada, he's sweating, muscles are pulsing out. He's like, there's no way that guy beat me. There's no way. He kept taking breaks. So competition's over. He's got the trophy, whatever. The two biggest guys, the Canadian guy and the guy from Washington State, come over and they're like, I got to ask you, how did you do it? Like, how did you beat me? You kept taking breaks and whatever. He goes, oh, very simple. He goes, every 15, 20 minutes or so, I went in my tent and I sharpened my axe. And then I came back out and I was able to cut more wood than you because you didn't sharpen your axe. And that's how Old Man Turley won the event. And really the moral of that story is that life is a strategy game. Life is not an ability. It's not what you were given. It's not how big you are. It's not how strong you are. It's not what was given to you or what successes you've had. It's your strategy. And you, all of you, everyone listening, if you start working on your strategy, you can be a champion too, and you can be like Old Man Turley. And it's something we all can do. We just got to work at it.
Wow, Graham, that's a great way to really inspire. And I think that we need to, if we keep sharpening our mind and our strategies, we'll be able to get where we want. I'd like to thank you again for joining us. And we'll be also putting a connection into some of these resources that Graham was mentioning on njprevent.com, as well as our safecoalition.org pages. And again, we'd like to thank Graham, and we look forward to our continuing series.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again.